if you're from DC or you love DC, this one's for you. Welcome to the People's Voice DC, a podcast where the city speaks for itself. Not just politics, not just headlines. We're talking real life, community life, DC life. From the metro rides to the murals on the walls, from classrooms to corner stores, from church basements to community meetings. This is where conversations actually happen. We talk about what matters: housing and money, mental health and healing, culture, music and creativity, faith, purpose, and finding your way, relationships, parenting, and growing up in the city. Yeah, we talk politics too, but only because policies affect our everyday lives. This show is presented by Rising Voices of Politics and founded by Reverend Michael Campbell with one goal in mind: give the people the mic. And when we say the people, we mean everybody. Young folks with big ideas, creatives with something to say, parents holding it down, leaders in the making, and anyone who's ever felt like their voice didn't matter. Trust, it does. No fake debates, no talking down, no boring energy, just real conversations, good vibes and perspectives that feel like home. Catch us live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and social media by searching The People's Voice, DC, or Rising Voices of Politics. Miss the live show? It drops the same night at risingvoicesdc.org, and you can listen anytime on Spotify. So whether you're on your phone, in the car, in the dorm, or just trying to feel connected, tap in, tune in, and be part of something bigger. This is The People's Voice, DC, the city, the culture, the conversation. And yeah, the people got something to say.
Welcome to this edition of the People's Voice DC. Listen. I got some things I need to get off my chest. But first, y'all know how we got to start it off.
We are the New York Knicks. 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 Say go New York, go.
Go New York, go!
New York, go New York, go. Say go New York, go New York, go. Go New York, go New York, go. Well, just like that, look who's back in the mix. Straight out of New York City, it's the Red Hot Knicks, and nothing's gonna stop us from hanging a banner. Not the Hawks, Heat, or even Indiana. It's the Knicks, back on pace, back in the chase. That's right, the 8th seed in the thick of the race. And while you try and react to the shots we be blocking, check out the team that keeps the Garden rocking. Spree, hitting threes, playing D. Houston launching jumps from the top of the key. And Ward, you and Child and Larry. Thomas, Big Chris, and Marcus can be. Nobody does it like the Knicks.
Hey, listen, y'all got to respect my Knicks. Everybody doubted us. Nobody thought we were going to do what we did. But not only did we do it, we swept these people twice in a row. And we ain't just, last minute 3-pointer at the buzzer. No. It wasn't going down like that. It wasn't going down like that. Not with my man Big Body Jalen Brunson. Not with my man Cat Carl Anthony Towns. Not with the one and only OG Andy. Hey, listen, we were smashing people. I'm talking averaging 20 points or better every game. I'm talking about we don't even know what it feels like to lose. Like, we ain't lost in a month. Like, OKC, we ready. San Antonio, we play y'all tomorrow. They expected it to be OKC. I'm like, we ready for OKC. We ain't Shea Butter. Who is Shea? We not worried about Shea. We not worried about him. But we got the dinosaur. We got that big guy. We got that defensive player of the year. And we ain't worried. Listen, I'm calling it 6 games. New York gonna win. We're gonna win it in the Madison Square Garden. And watch out, because I'm about to get my tickets. But listen up. We got a great show ahead. We have Madam Sampath, and she may correct me on how I pronounce her name, but we have her in the back. She's running for mayor of this city. By now it's June. Listen, election day is June 16th. It's around the corner. It is literally around the corner. So listen, I know people have been coming to me like, hey, who is Rini? Have you talked, Pastor Mike, have you talked to Rini? And I'm like, I've heard about her. I've listened, to a few things, and, but I haven't personally talked to her. And so I'm excited that we are able to get her on the show. I know a lot of people have asked me to get her on the show. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this conversation. And so here we go. You will meet her right after this.
Why would you give a promotion to someone who has failed at the basic functions of their job? The current frontrunners in the DC mayor's race are political insiders who have served on the city council for years. But we all know DC government is broken. The leaders in City Hall have let us down over and over. During the snowstorm, the failures of our current leadership were on full display. For weeks, streets and sidewalks were unpassable and dangerous. Trash piled up. Water lines burst because of aging infrastructure. People lost income because they couldn't get to work. And businesses suffered because their customers couldn't get around the city. But the problem is a lot bigger than one snowstorm. DC is the capital of the US, and we have a population that is incredibly engaged with federal politics, but so many people who live in DC feel completely disconnected from what's happening with our local government. Because while we watch our city's infrastructure crumble around us, the same political insiders have been in City Hall for years, sitting on their hands while these problems get worse and worse. The politicians who have let things get this bad aren't going to be the ones to fix it. We need someone new. We need to go back to basics and fix our roads and sidewalks and city services. I'm Rini Sampath, and I'm running for mayor. I'm not a politician. I'm not backed by any special interest groups. I'm a federal contractor who has spent my career improving government programs and citizen services. I love DC, and as mayor, my priority will be to make sure our city lives up to its basic commitments to our residents. Fill the potholes. Stop the catastrophic wastewater spill in the Potomac. Lower prices, improve 911 wait times. We need to fix the basics. Let's get to work.
Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Pastor Mike. I'm good. I'm smiling because that video feels like forever ago, but it wasn't forever ago. I think it has to do with the fact every day on the campaign trail feels like 365 days. I know you remember. Yes. But I'm good. Very happy to be here. Very happy and honored to be a part of one of your episodes because I know you reach so many wonderful people. And I heard what you were saying about folks who are looking forward to hearing from me. So I'm here to bear it all. Ask me anything.
I love it. I love the spirit. First of all, did I pronounce your name right? How do we pronounce your name?
Yes,
okay.
Rini Sampath. That's perfect.
Got it. Thank you. I'm always, that's always something that I try to do my homework on, and I thought I had it right. I just wanted to make sure, please, Lord. Great. So, tell us who you are. We kind of seen a little bit we heard a little bit in the video, but how did you get here? Who are you? And what inspired you to take this path?
Yeah, absolutely. So who I am first starts with where I was born. I was actually born in a very small town in the Tamil Nadu, India, called Theni. And just background about my own family, working class family. A grandfather had a seventh grade education. Grandmother had a first grade education. Education's the reason why my father was able to really overcome the odds and eventually move our entire family to the United States. So I moved to the US when I was 7. Since then, I've lived in a ton of places. I've lived in Singapore, I've lived in Arizona, California, I've lived in Boston for even short 6 months, but DC is the longest place I have ever lived. In fact, this is where I just knew, I was like, this is home for me because this culture is so amazing. People are so amazing. And when I moved to DC, I was working at a nonprofit in higher education, switched over to the technology space, been there for a while. And then there's a lot that compelled me to decide to run for office, but I'll give you a beat in case you wanted me to expand on anything there. And then I can dive into, what made me want to do this. So that's background about me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, that's great. That's great. Like, a lot of people always wonder, like, what is the experience? Does she know how government works? Does she know the systems? Is she familiar with how DC works? So that in itself is good. And so we're going to just go ahead and dive right into it. On your platform, on your website, I had the liberty, I went on it. And when we talk about DC services and government, one of the biggest issues that, I mean, we can't even say it's for weeks or months, it's been years, an issue, is our DC 911 system, our OUC. Yep. And you talk about what the auditor found in its investigation, and you talk about your day one plan, your year one plan, and what you hope to accomplish over your first term, potentially. So tell us here and now, what is the issue and how will you fix it? I was over a friend's house, and this is so recent. I was over a friend's house, and they happened to be living in Ward 4. And it wasn't, no type of violent emergency or anything, but we needed to call 911 and make a report. And immediately after I called, I mean, it was, I'm not exaggerating, it had to have been 90 seconds. Yeah. And an officer was knocking on the door. Meanwhile, I've lived majority of my, I've lived in Southeast. And I mean, I've never experienced anything like that. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I know it's like something that we say, but to just experience it firsthand like that for myself was like, they came that quick? Like, I just was in shock. Wow. Yeah. I mean, so talk to us.
Yeah. And thank you for also doing the homework and pulling that up. That's kind of you to take a look. So, when I started this whole campaign and this race, first of all, I never intended to run for public office. Being a private citizen is nice, quite frankly, right? Your whole personal life is not out for everybody to pick apart. So I was living my life as a private citizen. And then the snowstorm happened and I testified at council, and a person at DPW during the council testimony shared that they had to be stuck in their home for 16 days because 311 never came to shovel their home area, sidewalk and whatnot, and they're a wheelchair user. And so, that was one example. The other example, as it relates to what you brought up with 911, is that a member of my community died of cardiac arrest because 911 OUC coded his call incorrectly. And the fire station was actually right next door to his home. And William, this is the individual, William Sonnertag, his mother actually had to sue the government to get the audio tape of her son's final moments. And it's just heartbreaking. And so, over the course, maybe these were the things that inspired me to get involved and run and do something about all of this. But over time, I've realized government, like to your point, Pastor Mike, it works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. And that often is determined by what zip code you're in. And so, agreed with you, you go over to a ward with a median income of $250,000, like Ward 3, or if you go over to Ward 7, 8, where our median income is $50K and life expectancy is sitting at 30 years below the average of the wards in Northwest, and the delivery of services is completely different. And so that's what I've been hammering home over the course of this campaign and trying to change the conversation, because my fear is that we can promise these really big, lofty programs, or we can suggest that we're going to make reforms in DC government, but fundamentally DC government has an execution problem. And so I attribute that, and I know the website has some bigger detailed plans around, what we'll do with the audit and how we'll implement it and changes we'll make, all that. One thing I've recognized over time is it's the agency heads as well. So our current mayor, I know if it's anecdotal because I don't think the audit reports are going to name this explicitly, but our current mayor hires her friends. And this is something I hear from DC government workers all the time, that their supervisors are individuals who shouldn't have those jobs, but they just know somebody. And so that's one of the biggest problems I have, and one of the more easier fixes, that we need to actually hire people who have the expertise and aren't just hired because they have loyalty to the mayor. And so that's why I keep emphasizing. I know maybe some folks in the community may not know me because I have been a private citizen, but the plus side of that is I do have clean hands, no special interest groups, no corporate PAC money, no one's puppeting me. It's completely clean hands and a fresh start.
Now, I do have to interject there. Something that you said would scare someone, and I'll give you an example. You
Sure.
said that, and don't get me wrong, it's not a good culture. I do totally agree that it's a culture where if you know somebody, you can get in the door, and it's not right.
Yeah.
However, I do think that there is also a fear there's a general fear of this, and it's partially been, this fire has been fueled by politicians.
Yeah.
But there's this Washingtonian versus everybody else type attitude that's going on, and that's been pushed by, in my opinion, that's been pushed by the McDuffie campaign. And what that does, and when you say something like, "Hey, look, I'm not a Washingtonian, but I want to bring in those who are of expertise." Most of the time in DC, we want to make sure that we remain a priority when it comes to being hired. This city was built on Washingtonians being federal workers and city government employees, and so that's a fear. So I just want, just for listeners to clarify that you will still prioritize Washingtonians, just that you will get the best qualified candidate.
That's exactly right. And you hit the nail on the head. I want to make sure folks understand that, my background too is when I was in college, especially, I was at the forefront of a lot of our race equity movements. And the advocacy and activism work that I did in college was actually what led to USC's Southern California's first ever Race and Equity Center. So I will say, like, a lot of my comments are hopefully rooted in that equity and justice lens. And one thing that I recognize is it may be scary when, someone who's not from the community makes a comment like that. But I want to make clear, I'm saying that because I want Native Washingtonians to actually benefit. My fear is that the sitting mayor is hiring just those in her inner political class circle, if you will, as opposed to those who have worked their butts off and gone to get a college degree, fighting tooth and nail to get through college and get an education that matters. But when they've turned their application in, their application is tossed to the side because this other individual in the pile has a relationship with somebody in the federal government, or I should say in the local government. And so, yeah, that's very much my take, is that, let's root that out so that people have an honest shot at thriving here and that their quality of life gets better.
Yes. I definitely appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, for sure. No, it matters for sure.
Yes. I just want to take a brief moment and remind everybody, hey, listen, we often think of calling the shelter hotline only in the winter time, only during the coldest months. However, hypothermia isn't the only danger. Extreme heat is danger too. Okay. Also, folks don't have any place to go in the summer too. We can't have this attitude of, oh, they're all right when they're outside, as long, when it's hot. There are still other things they have to deal with. So listen, if you see someone who is homeless, just if you might not have a dollar, you may not be able to stop and talk to them. It's just call the shelter hotline. We'll have a van. The city will have a van come over, make sure they're not hungry, offer them some type of shelter assistance, and offer some type of resources that they may need. So still keep in mind our shelter hotline is 1-800-535-7252. If you see someone that's homeless, offer them, you can ask them, would you like me to call the hotline for you? They'll pick up wherever the person is. If they want to go to a discrete location, you can give them that address and the van will go and pick them right on up. Getting back to Madam Rini, we will talk to her about Pepco right after this.
Let's start with the basics. I think a lot of people don't understand that there's multiple things that go into their bill. They just see that number that they're responsible for at the end. What are the primary drivers of the bill?
Steve, in the simplest terms, we have two parts to the major parts of the bill. The delivery, that's for Pepco to bring the power to your home. And then we have the supply side, and that's independent of us and people that have power plants that make the power. So your bill is into two different components. It's about a 50-50 split. Back in January, when we had that 3 weeks of extreme cold, more than a decade, what we saw is our customers use on average 60% or more electricity that month. So when you mention seasonal, we're going to definitely see lower cost just because of less usage. But when it comes to this supply side and needing more power plants, it's going to be with us for a little while.
A word of advice, I guess, to consumers out there who might say, okay, I guess this is what I'm paying now. Maybe it's a little more than in the past. What can I do about it?
A couple things there, Steve. One thing I would say, there's no decision we make on our side of the bill where we don't say what's the affordability and the customer benefit. But my advice would be customers taking a little bit more of an active role. As simple as unplugging that toaster, doing the different things, keeping that thermostat down just a few degrees can make big differences. Don't want anybody to change their lifestyle, Steve, but conservation is a big piece of it.
And there we have it. Pepco says that the solution is to unplug your appliances. Don't use your refrigerator 24 hours, maybe. Don't use the microwave anymore. That's the solution. They say, hey, it's on the consumers. It's a tough time. We know it. You got to do what you got to do. Unplug your stuff. Hopefully the bill will go down. It is what it is. What is the issue? How will you fix it as mayor? How will you help fix it, should I say, as mayor?
Yeah, I appreciate you putting that clip up to Pastor Mike, because if you recall, last time I was supposed to come on, I couldn't because you had, I think it was a grid failure or power failure, and we were texting about it. You're like, Pepco, come on, get us some better customer service for what we do pay. But I'll mention this, that I think it's interesting to me that those are the exact same talking points that's being parroted right now by Mr. McDuffie at the debates. They're eerily similar between what a paid Pepco representative is saying to Washingtonians and what Mr. McDuffie shares when confronted with the fact that he is supported by many Washington Gas, Pepco lobbyists. He has relationships, revolving door relationships with these corporations. And so I just want to point that out for the listeners as well, something to keep our ear to the ground on, because oftentimes we have to ask ourselves the question of who is backing these politicians? Why are they being backed by these or why are they backing these politicians? And it's just something to marinate on. But to answer your question specifically about Pepco itself, so DC Public Service Commission, PSC, is the commission that oversees Pepco. And so these appointments were made unanimously by DC Council, which is another one of my arguments as to why we genuinely need someone new. We need to start over when it comes to the way that we govern, because clearly utility affordability is just not a thing in DC right now, and the talking points that a PEPCO representative is parroting is not the reality for people like you and me on the ground. And so first thing that I want to make clear is that I'm not anti-utility. I think that any kind of rate increases would need to be actually tied to need, reliability, performance. But at the same time, we need much tougher public service commissioners who are actually doing that type of oversight. So that's the mayoral lever that I can pull. And we need to appoint commissioners who understand affordability. They need to understand consumer protection, grid reliability, and the burden that's on renters and seniors and working families. And so that's, I think, going to be issue number one. The second piece, what I've consistently said at a lot of our forums, is that it's so puzzling to me, especially as a private citizen, someone who hasn't run for office, is that a lot of these decisions can be made behind closed doors. And so even, someone who's run for office at this point for almost 4 months, I don't even have a perfect amount of clarity on why this happens or what's going on, because they're closed door meetings. And then you have these PACs that come out and issue, they're flooding our mailers with information about Mr. McDuffie or Miss Lewis George. And so to me, I just see it as, I wish we had less outside involvement in our DC politics for that reason. I wish we didn't have closed door meetings so that people had transparency and could understand what's going on. I know some other contenders for the race have mentioned things like improving our own reliance on energy. I think Gary Goodweather mentioned a nuclear reactor in DC. I strongly disagree with some of these approaches, because for me, it just comes down to the types of commissioners we appoint, the types of leaders we elect who aren't in the pockets of utility providers, and also our ability to understand how the decisions are made, why they're made, so that we can actually know if these things are being, directly affecting the money that's in our pockets at the end of every month.
Thank you for that. I totally agree. And for the record, I do not want to see a nuclear power plant in our city. I don't care where it is. I do not want to see it in our city at all. I just want to make that known. We did have a question from one of our listeners, from Chris Otten. He said, can we pull the plug on the PSA?
Is that the PSC or the Public Service Commission reference? Or is it public service announcement? I just want to clarify.
Maybe he'll comment and clarify. This actually brings us into our next topic, so we'll go ahead and post it. He says, Rini is a breath of fresh air. Is she familiar with social housing, and would she ensure that public and is no longer privatized for more luxury housing, but instead we pursue social housing, municipally owned and tenant controlled? And he gave a website.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm definitely familiar with social housing, the term social housing.
He also corrected that and said PSC.
PSC. Okay, I'll get to that question too. I'll start with the housing one, just because I guess I already started answering that one. Yes. So housing, first of all, the social housing piece I'm familiar with, and the reason I'm familiar with it is I believe it was the Democratic Socialists who really popularized the term. I'm sure there's even a deeper history behind it, so I don't want to imply that I know it entirely. But the way that I see it in kind of like the world that I come from of progressivism and just like the Democratic Party, I know we've talked about affordable housing and deeply affordable housing. And so what I'll share is my housing policy from start to finish. So the way that I look at our housing affordability crisis is, one, we have to lease up our existing affordable housing units more quickly. It's wild to me that we have so many affordable housing units in DC, but they actually don't end up housing the individuals with need quickly, because it takes on average 13 months to fill one vacant affordable housing unit. And the same year that we had the highest rates of affordable housing vacancies, the housing executive director of the DC Housing Authority executive director got a $40,000 bonus. And so to me, that's like a massive government effectiveness. Like, you know, in what organization? That's some people's annual salaries. And we're rewarding someone in DC government for not even doing their job. And so the way that I see it is DCHA needs to be reformed completely so that any affordable housing units that we do build, that the process and the internal systems to get people in need into those homes is a lot faster. And I think that can be done by technology. I've got a technology background. I've got an administrator and operational background. I would know how to clean something like that up, especially by appointing the right DCHA executive director with type of operational experience. So I think that that would be a very, very meaningful change. So one, it's leasing up the homes more quickly. Secondly, it is making sure that our renters are protected. Right now, and I've kind of gone through the DC, campaigning experience and heard that some individuals think that renter protections would be at odds with building more homes. But I reject that false choice. I think that that's just simply not true. And anyone who's...
Pause real quick. If you're from DC.
Way back.
I've never seen that happen before, but go ahead.
It was like pause. I was like, okay, pause. Simon said pause. Okay. But as I was saying, the renter protections, I've heard, contenders say that renter protections will make it more difficult to build housing. I just reject that false choice because that's the kind of, developer focused mentality that has sometimes gotten us into places like, RFK Stadium getting built, $1.1 billion welfare for developers without the kind of meaningful affordable housing and tenant protection policies that we needed to see from day one. And so my promise is that we are going to make sure that we crack down on any junk fees, surprise charges, hidden costs by using the Office of Attorney General to go after those types of landlords who are adding hundreds of dollars to monthly housing expenses. We need to crack down on predatory rental fees. We need to strengthen the transparency requirements, enforce tenant protections like TOPA that are already on the books. What we know is a lot of these existing tenant protections are simply not as effective as they could be, going back to my point about DC government having an execution problem. And so that's, my belief on the renter protections. And then third, my belief is that the market, if we're able to build more homes, we can bring the price of homes down in general. And the way to do that is make sure that we have upzoning so that we can build in areas that we haven't previously been able to build in, eliminating parking requirements and minimums near transit. We can legalize single stair homes up to 8 stories. And what that's going to do is bring in this type of development that's going to make sure the price of homes goes down. I will add, though, the biggest concern for individuals has been when they hear someone like me say, let's build more homes. Well, what happens when it comes to displacement? There have been residents who say that they're being displaced because of the new developments. And so one thing I want to do as mayor is actually make it, I guess I could say it would be a commitment. My commitment to people would be a race and equity plan along with any development plan that's proposed with the city. And I think that's going to be one of my more creative and innovative thoughts that's, again, rooted in my background in equity and justice, is getting developers, getting people to commit to saying, if we are going to develop in any of these neighborhoods, this is our plan to make sure existing residents aren't being pushed out. So that would be my approach. But I'm curious if there's any further thoughts on the social housing piece specifically, which is not something that I'm, super deeply, I guess you could say, familiar with. So, yeah.
He did respond. And really quickly, I do want to just say that my brother, Chris Otten, is a co-founder of the People's Voice DC. He was the co-host when this show started, and so there would be no People's Voice DC without Brother Otten. And so I am thankful that you have taken time to tune in today. I always appreciate when you tune in. So, but yeah, he did respond, and he said, where has building more housing brought the price down in DC?
Yep. So I think this is a very fair question. I think the idea is that when supply grows, the rent pressure eases. And so there is some research that supports this. And I'm happy to drop some of that. Even like DC Policy Center and DC's CFO found that increasing the housing supply in 2025 actually lowered the cost of renting by $171 per month. That's groceries. That's, you know, being able to take your kids out. And so I can drop that link in the chat if that's helpful. And then let me see if I can find a couple of our other research papers on this. But I quite honestly was introduced to this concept of like the abundance movement and NIMBYism like more recently. But when I started reading about the research, it made me feel like a true believer that this is something that would work for DC. But again, I think it has to be done with guardrails. And so that's why I say a lot about the renter protections and making sure we lease up existing homes and all of that. But I'm going to drop some of these in the chat. So I hope that helps.
Okay. We'll make sure that all
Yes.
of our viewers and listeners get that, even because we do air on Spotify as well. So for our Spotify listeners, please
Awesome.
feel free to drop a comment on the video, on the show, and I will make sure that you get all of the links. That's how we'll do that. Make sure our Spotify listeners are included. So yeah, moving right along. I am a Ward 7 resident, and we for a long time in Ward 7 have been trying to do all we can to get a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they did put the Lidls on Alabama and Marionberry, but you know, that just became Ward 7. And for folks that live on our side of Ward 7, it really doesn't count. It's really not, you know, close. There's a Safeway on Minnesota Avenue. Me personally, I have made a commitment to myself and to God that I will never again enter into the doors of that Safeway on Minnesota Avenue. It is horrible. And I mean horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. Every time I go in there, I've had a bad experience. Like I just told myself, I will not do that anymore. We want a grocery store. We keep being promised a grocery store, and we can't get a grocery store. I currently date a vegan. And I mean, you guys gotta pray for me. Life gets tough sometimes in this life. But I mean, she is very, very serious about health. She's always getting on me and making me aware. But she doesn't live in Ward 7, and she has so much food access and so much food availability. And I'm like, I mean, I guess it's easier for you over there, you know? I'm looking, I did some research, of course. This is on your website, everyone. Her website has been posted throughout this show. You can just look on the screen and you can see it. But according to DC Hunger Solutions and the DC Fiscal Policy Institute, grocery access varies sharply by ward. Higher income neighborhoods, more full service grocery stores. Folks like us east of the river and in Ward 7 and 8, low food access areas. We know why it keeps failing. We've been living through it for literally decades. You have a plan for day one, you have a plan for year one, and you have a one-term goal. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up this topic. I will mention that my passion for this definitely stems from the fact that even in my own family, there's been food insecurity. I mean, my father grew up in that type of a home, and so this is not something I take lightly, and I get especially, as you could say, like upset when I hear people say things like, well, those grocery stores aren't staying open in Ward 7 and 8 because of public safety and crime. And it's like, well, hungry people commit crime. And so it's a chicken and the egg game here. I'm trying to determine like what's leading to what. And so the way that I see it as mayor or as any city government official who's working on this topic, it just needs to be project managed and project plan in a way that's very meaningful. So that's why even on our website, we try to do like the day one, give you guys like a map of how we would approach this particular issue. So you could see a lot of it on there, but I will mention a couple of things that my thoughts on this have evolved over time as well. And so one, I think that we need that type of mayoral ownership where the mayor needs to be at the table with grocers and landowners and DDOT and community leaders until the sites are secured, the stores are open, until they remain open. The mayor basically needs to make this one of her top priorities, and that is what it is for me. That particular platform point has been on my website since the day I announced because of how passionate I am about this topic. And even going back to one of Chris's comments in the chats about public land, I'm assuming he was talking about it from the perspective of housing, but I will also mention, I look at this from a grocery store perspective as well. Public land can be used for that type of leverage. And so grocery store access should be a part of this deal, and public land should be used to solve the public needs. Third, I also think we need to support smaller models. We don't need to wait 10 years for one big box grocery store. Support for co-ops and local food entrepreneurs, fresh food markets, mobile markets. There's a lot of other creative ways that we can get fresh food to Ward 7 and 8. One thing that's always boggled me is the DuPont Farmers Market. You have the Mount Pleasant Farmers Market. You have all these farmers markets in Northwest that people love to go take their dogs to, including myself. You don't hear about that in Ward 7 and 8, simply because that is not the priority, and that needs to become a priority. So that's another way that I think about food access is it doesn't have to come in this very traditional format. We can also look at smaller models. I also want to think about the fact that these tax incentives and tax relief for stores in high need areas need to come with accountability, because one thing that I have learned is there's tax benefits for landlords who end up just keeping their storefronts vacant, in at least in areas that I've been speaking to business owners in wards. I believe I spoke to a business owner in Ward 2 who mentioned that to me, because I was asking, why do we have so many vacant businesses over here? And it was like, well, the landowners are incentivized to keep the storefronts vacant. And so I also want to look at what our tax incentives look like, because I think that that's another way in which people are just kind of choosing to not open up their stores or just open up and then bounce. And so I think there needs to be some consequences in that way as well. So I feel like a lot of the things that I talk about, it's a systems-based approach. There's a lot of different ways we need to tackle the problem. But the first thing is that it needs to even be a top priority for the mayor. And that's something that is a top priority for me.
That is so good to hear. Thank you. It brings up just some numbers that I was looking over the other day of disparities just from Ward 3 to Ward 8. You can see it, the difference in income, the difference in grocery access, the difference in poverty. There's a major difference just from Ward 3 to Ward 7 and 8. And also, of course, the difference that we all know but never talk about is the racial difference. That's the clearest and most obvious difference. And when we talk about grocery store access, when we talk about our utility bills, when we talk about job access, when we talk about all of these things, that is always a top issue for me and for most of those who listen to and who are involved with our show, is that we want to kind of level the playing field. We're already in a situation now where there's a culture where you have to literally pray that your child get selected in the lottery for the school that they want to go to, so that
Right.
or should I say that you want your child to go to, so that they can get a quality education? Because unfortunately, the untold truth is that some schools just don't deliver.
That's right.
Some schools just aren't safe. So what we haven't talked about, but we have a few more minutes. How would you attack our education?
Yeah, absolutely. I know I started the show talking about my own family's experience with how education has changed our lives, and it's changed the trajectory of generations to come. My father was taken out of school in the 7th grade to go work in a factory, and it was his teachers who came and said, like, this boy is so smart, he needs to be in school. So even think about that, right? What a miracle that he had that type of support system, which then he got to go back to school, then eventually became this brilliant engineer. We got to move to the US, all this amazing stuff. But anyway, I just think that every single child in DC is not lacking in intelligence or talent or hard work. They're just lacking opportunity, and they're lacking access. And so it is so frustrating to know that we have such high spending in DC, but we don't have the outcomes that we want, because the way that I see it is, like, we don't have this massive money issue. We have an execution failure. One example I'll give you is that there was a period of time where DCPS pushed $274 million of contracts to vendors with zero oversight from DC Council. And that was a massive execution failure. And then you had one contract specialist go to prison for 15 months for pushing contracts to their friends. And so, again, these kickback schemes, the money going to the wrong vendors, the money going to the contractors who may have friends within DC government, it's all contributing to the quality of the outcomes that we're seeing. Everything from HVAC system failures in Ward 7 and 8. If you don't have heat, how can you expect children to go to school, right? If you don't have quality food in school, like I was at the NAACP forum that was recently hosted in Ward 4, and an individual came up and said, do you pledge to focus on the quality of food in schools? And funny enough, during the campaign, when I have been on my little Metro Stop tour talking to young people in Anacostia, talking to young people up in Columbia Heights, they're the ones who tell me that school lunch is actually a contributor to their need to come to school. And so, again, there's a lot of different ways in which we can improve the educational experience, because I think our educators are wonderful and work so hard, but our infrastructure needs to be better. Even our food needs to be better. Our transit needs to be better. And to me, so much of this is tied to DC's inherent execution failure and inability to manage our existing dollars appropriately so the money can go towards positive outcomes. And so, my pledge as mayor would be, within my first 30 days, my first inspections, walk around inspections, are going to be with our schools in Ward 7 and 8, because I see education as fundamentally the root of everything else, of healthcare outcomes, of our wealth that we can accumulate over time, all of these things that impact your quality of life. And so I want to be that mayor who walks around, looks at the problems myself, writes those directives so we can see the change, and ultimately cleans this up so that our young people go to school and don't have to be bused 40 minutes to get to a school that they're praying that they actually have access to. So, yeah.
I am sure that my good friend over in Ward 8, Dr. LaJoy Johnson Law, would definitely appreciate that response, the Ward 8 SBOE rep. And I, as an educator for the past 5 or 6 years, I surely, I'm telling you, I have spent thousands on Uber rides.
Unbelievable.
And not to mention that I am forced to use Uber rides now because this current administration won't, they are being lobbied by Uber and Lyft. So now I can't take a cheaper alternative with Empower. So I just wanted to throw that out there for our listeners. That's something to consider. when we vote empower is gone because supporters and lobbyists are making their voice heard. But
Pastor Mike, I'd love to weigh in
thousands.
on the affordability topic that you mentioned, because that's actually something I said at a recent forum. It was on Capitol Hill, and I said that the elephant in the room about our affordability crisis is the city has been bought by individuals who, I should not individuals, because companies are not individuals, contrary to what the Supreme Court wants us to think. Companies are companies, and they're lobbying our DC government, which is leading to the affordability crisis we have. And so I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's a very meaningful topic for your listeners to digest some more too, because it's, when you think about it, and that's why I've been so openly criticizing the Green Team. Mayor Bowser received a $25,000 donation to her campaign from two prominent developers. And then right after campaign's over, she's in office, they get the majority of public land for real estate developments. And I'm not criticizing the fact that it's going to real estate developers, period, because we need them to build more homes so that we can lower the cost of housing. But I'm criticizing the fact it's pay to play politics in DC, and that's got to end.
It's got to end. It's got to end. Yeah. So listen, it's been a great show. I've been enjoying some of these responses in this conversation. I do have to mention to everyone, don't forget our Ward 7 Juneteenth parade on June 19th. I particularly like that day because that marks the beginning of my summer. That marks the day that I don't have to worry about waking up and seeing kids anymore. June 19th. Be there. We will start gathering together at 9 a.m. The parade will start at 11 a.m. Listen. I know how y'all like to do in DC. I know how we like to do in DC. I promise you, you will be left behind. The parade starts at 11. They are also looking for volunteers. They need people to help make this happen, help make this a success. This is not the first time we do it every year. Let's get on out and let's celebrate Juneteenth. Before you go, there was something else on your website that I just had to ask you about, and I just wanted you to briefly explain. But I saw something and I was like, wow, this is kind of, I like this. It's kind of cool.
Yep.
DC should be the easiest city in America to start a business and keep it open. We are number one in the nation for first year business failures. That is absolutely ridiculous. We are number one in the nation for first year business failures. And coming from someone who was a business owner and it had to close down. I'm starting back up, of course. But yes, I get it. You guys built a small business permitting concierge that helps entrepreneurs move faster, cut through bureaucracy, and get the answers they need. This is a preview of what you'll be in the mayor's office. Please explain this.
Absolutely. And I love the enthusiasm in which you describe it, because I don't think I could have even made that pitch with the same level of enthusiasm. You got me hyped up about our app. I'll tell you this. We realized we were, not complaining, criticizing, whatever you want to call it, about these issues with DC government. So we thought to ourselves, folks don't know me because I have been a private citizen. How can we show people the way that I would lead, that, way that I think, with creativity, with the technology in mind to make people's lives better? So we said, let's build some apps that's going to make people recognize and understand how I think, right? And so the first app was the 311 redesign. That was a prototype, and I think people really enjoyed it. We built a tax dashboard. That's a lot of fun to navigate. If you go in there, you just plug in your income. It'll tell you exactly where your money's going. Third is this business concierge. And the reason that we decided to do this in terms of like the actual personal story is that I started talking to business owners through the campaign, especially, who were telling me they were getting shaken down for $10,000 for a velocity permit, or just ways from DC government to make their permitting process faster. And I was like, this is unbelievable. This is maybe stories that you would hear in other countries, but here in the capital of the nation, this is not what should be happening. And we designed this so that we just make the system easier for people to navigate. So if you go on it, you can literally choose, oh, I'm opening up a food truck, or I'm opening up a bar. And then it'll ask you a couple questions. It'll actually link you to the agency sites that you need to go. And then obviously, you go and fill all of that out, and hopefully your permits come back quickly. And my hope is that besides a very user-friendly app, if I'm mayor, I can actually go up into the back end, clean it up so that there aren't any shakedowns from DC government officials to get you the permits that you need, and that it's actually a working system. So this is, like you said, Pastor Mike, a small preview.
Wow. I love it. Listen, it's been excellent. It has been truly excellent. We're coming to the point where it's the close of our show. So this is when I like to let you. I want you to be the last voice. Anything that we may have not covered that you want to talk about, any responses that are out there that you want to make, it's your time. Take a few minutes and close the show out. It's all you.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. I just want to say thank you to you for having me on your show. You could have chosen any of the candidates, and there's a lot of us, but it means a lot to me to be on your show. And then I'll also mention this to your listeners. I will, I'm sure you being a leader in your community, I just wanted to make it known that one of the most meaningful experiences I've had in DC was volunteering for Horton's Kids when I first moved to DC. And that was an amazing opening into what can happen when you take the time out of your day to mentor young people and just allow them to blossom. So I just have a commitment, regardless of the outcome of this election. I am forever changed by what I have learned, what solutions I have to offer, and where I am determined to invest the majority of my time is in the communities that need the support the most, and in our young people specifically. And so I just want your listeners to know that I'm not going anywhere. Maybe this is the first time that you're hearing about me, but I will be present. I will be in the community. I want to raise my kids here one day. I want to be that, my kids say I'm a native Washingtonian. And so you just have that pledge for me. I do hope to earn your number one rank in this election. If it's not number one, it is ranked choice. And even number two would give me just, the encouragement that this is worth it, getting our, name out there and connecting with community members. So I appreciate you.
Awesome. Until next time, this is the People's Voice.
All right, real quick. If you've ever yelled at your phone like, man, why nobody ever talks about this? Congratulations. This podcast is for you. Welcome to the People's Voice, DC, where the city finally gets the mic. And now, this ain't one of those podcasts where everybody sounds smart, but nobody actually saying anything. We talk real life, DC life. The kind of conversations you have after work, on the metro, or when the group chat gets serious out of nowhere. Yeah, we talk politics, but don't worry. Nobody yelling over each other. Nobody reading off cue cards. And definitely nobody pretending they got it all figured out. We're talking housing, money, schools, mental health, culture, faith, purpose, relationships. Basically all the stuff that actually affects your life, but somehow never gets explained right. This podcast is powered by Rising Voices of Politics and founded by Reverend Michael Campbell. But listen, you don't gotta be a politician, a preacher, or an expert in nothing to belong here. If you got opinion, questions, or just a story to tell, you already qualify. And the energy, chill, honest, a little funny. Sometimes deep, sometimes light, but always real. Catch us live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and social media. Miss it? Cool. It drops the same night at risingvoicesdc.org, and you can listen anytime on Spotify. So whether you're outside, inside, commuting, procrastinating, or just tired of podcasts that don't sound like you, tap in, tune in, laugh a little, learn something. This is the People's Voice, DC, where the conversations make sense. The people are real. And yeah, we might even say what you've been thinking.